Hey, congratulations. You made it to episode 5 of the AI Bot Show. I'm Carl Franklin, and that's Brian MacKay. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Carl. How's it going today?
Can't complain, but I do anyway. So what do you got in store for us?
All right. So I wanted to check in on the state of generative agents. Back in April 2023, there was an explosion of them that all hit at the same time. And at the time, and maybe now, they didn't really completely work. The idea is fascinating. It's definitely got a future. And I just wonder what's going on with them 4 months later, almost 5 months later.
So I know that we talked about agents a little bit, but can you just bring us back to what that means?
Yeah, so this is a big idea. It's a really big idea in generative AI. So usually when you're working with GPT, you are typing out a prompt and getting a response back, right? That's the typical way to use it. There's a project called LangChain that was pretty early to this idea. What they do is very cleverly chain a bunch of prompts together to make something more interesting happen. So
does that mean the output of one goes to the input of another and they keep refining it or something? How does that work?
Yeah, it's like imagine there's like a system, a server in the middle. And when you ask it a question, the server orchestrates a series of prompts to get a much better response. So you might say, so the question?
No, I'm just wrapping my mind around it.
Okay. It's a really powerful and kind of mind-blowing idea when you get into it.
Yeah.
So the idea that I saw for LangChain way back in the day was somebody asked it, like, who is Justin Bieber dating now? And GPT stops its training, as we all know, in 2021, right? So it doesn't know who Justin Bieber's dating now. Of course, now ChatGPT can search the web and find an answer like that. But at the time, actually, those things are kind of agents too. Like when ChatGPT is stopping and searching the web and getting you back a response, that's like a mini agent. Like behind the scenes, it's orchestrating things to make that happen.
See, we haven't demoed that. Like the last time we talked about this, we said, yeah, it can't reach out and look at the internet. But when did that capability creep into GPT or ChatGPT anyway?
I was in beta, so I'm not sure what the exact month that we all got plugins was, but definitely for months now, all paid ChatGPT Plus users have access to plugins. And I'll just show you this over here in ChatGPT. So in mine, I have Code Interpreter turned on.
Yeah, we showed that last week, I think.
Yeah, but there's way more to show.
Okay.
When I turn on plugins and I go over here and go to the plugin store, there's a whole bunch of things in here, most of which, a lot of these are really interesting, like ask your PDF, like this. There are a lot of things in here now where you can upload files and it will interact with them in interesting ways. So chat with PDF, for instance, you can upload a PDF and then ask it questions. And if you ever done something nerdy, like say, run a D&D campaign, this is really powerful because you could upload the rules. And then anytime there's a rules conflict, instead of spending 10 minutes like searching through this huge book,
right?
You can just ask it, like, what's the armor class of them?
So it's kind of like asking an intelligent being to read a book and then let me ask you questions about it.
Yep. But also there's plugins for things like Kayak. So
which is
it lets you book travel.
Oh, geez.
So you could, pretty easily book travel, rental cars and flights. All that.
So this is just 6 of them. Obviously, there's more. So you can just do Bing or Google or whatever?
Well, Bing has its own also that is pretty powerful. Its own chatbot built into it, which is based on the same technology.
Right.
But there's a whole bunch in here. So you can search for things. It's also possible through a beta program to create your own, which could have some power. Access Google Sheet. There's a lot of really powerful things.
Are you kidding? Like this is huge.
It's huge. It's huge. And we should probably do a whole show where we just play with plugins.
Yeah.
Because there's so much here. But that was just like a little ancillary thing because, my point was that it can search the internet now, which there are plugins for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to show Agent GPT, which I don't think is the best one, but it has the best user interface.
Okay.
So you'll see how this works pretty fast. We're going to give this thing a name. Actually, producer Carl, what's a goal we want to tackle with this thing?
So you're talking about taking the output of one request, going to the input of another, or are you talking about in parallel? Like, I'm not sure exactly how it works.
Okay, I'm going to use their default one, okay? We're going to call it Agent GPT, and we're going to go with make the world a better place. Now, before I do this, let me just give you a caveat, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Agent GPT is now a paid product. The version that I have only allows you to chain like 5 deep, which is pretty weak, but it's enough to see what it does, how it works.
So are you giving it an arbitrary name that happens to be Agent GPT, or?
Yep, that was the name that it. Yeah, we'll call it the World Better Fire.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, good.
All right, so then we say go. And what you're going to see is it's going to break this down into a bunch of tasks and then attack the tasks one by one.
What?
All the while asking questions like, is this good enough? Does this achieve our goals? It's going to stop in a second. Right. There's actually a sidebar on the right that you can't see that shows all the tasks that it's going to attack. It'll stop soon before it really gets to something super interesting, most likely.
So let's wait until it's done. Embarking on a new goal, make the world a better place. Task added. Identify current global issues and areas that require improvement. Task added. Conduct research to gather data and information on the identified issues. Sounds like a corporate board meeting so far.
It does.
Task. Analyze the collected data to determine the best course of action for improvement. That'll be $500.
So it comes up with the tasks that will get you there.
Yeah.
And then it starts attacking them. And I'm just going to scroll through this quickly because although this is the most important task, this is actually not that important for our purposes. It's actually searching the web to get issues that are problems in the world. So I'm just going to zoom past them. It analyzes those. So what it's doing here is it's running a series of prompts and using like external systems to grab things from the web and pulling it all together. And you can see how it's kind of iteratively solving this problem.
Yeah, I get it now. So the first thing it does is it breaks down the problem into tasks and then sort of asks itself, to dive into these details.
Right.
So it's doing kind of what we did with our game, right? And before our story. Yeah. Except that we don't actually have to think of the next step.
Yeah. And the difference is it's not, at least in the past, it hasn't been good enough to really do that. Like it tends to get stuck. It starts looping. It doesn't get anywhere. Like having the human, like if you could, in my mind, if you could make an agent like this where a human was in the middle of it, refining the answers and guiding the next step, you would have something really powerful. And I don't think anyone's building that. I would kind of like to.
All right. Now I can think of a good example if you want to.
Okay, so save that for the better system that's going to run a little better.
Okay, good.
So this is interesting. This is an interesting part. We'll just pause on this. It identified environmental sustainability, kind of broke down. Of course, we all know what the problem is there. And then it started writing code to optimize energy consumption. I guess that's the Fibonacci sequence.
What? All right, that seems like a hallucination to me. What is that?
Well, it may be. I mean, that looks like it could be the Fibonacci.
Optimizing energy consumption is just calculating a Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like it's going to optimize it.
Yeah.
It does seem like it might be Fibonacci.
Yeah, could be.
By optimizing code and reducing energy consumption, we can minimize the carbon footprint of
software applications. I don't know.
This is not a good result.
Yeah.
But you can see what it's trying to do.
Imagine that next day board meeting where the guy comes in, he says, I've consulted Agent GPT and it says that we need to use a Fibonacci sequence if we want to conserve energy. And everybody just,
you're fired, Jeeves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these solutions are weak sauce. This is also using. So this is the free version of Agent GPT. This used to be free across the board. In the free version, you get 5 runs per day. It's limited to a certain number of loops, and it only uses GPT 3.5.
Okay.
So very limited. So we're just going to zoom down to the bottom and see the part where it stopped. So it was about to implement strategies, and it got to its max of 5 loops, and it shut down.
So let me look at that last task. Create a software application that uses interactive and educational features to provide environmental awareness and inspire individuals to adopt environmentally friendly behaviors. This application should provide information on environmental issues, showcase sustainable practices, and offer practical tips on how individuals can make a positive impact on the environment in their daily lives. Seems like a daunting task for a piece of software, doesn't it?
It is. We asked it for a way to make the world better.
This is an interesting thing. Back in 2000 something, I interviewed Bob Resselman on .NET Rocks, and he said when he used to teach software programming, and one of his favorite things, like the first day, it says, write a program that changes the world.
Oh,
and everybody, this is the way your brain goes. Stuff like this, right? We got kind of tasks and environmental impact and whatever. And the one person who won wrote a simple counter that says, number of people killed by drunk driving. And the counter was just going up. And so that changed the world. It changed anybody who just looked at the software.
Oh.
And therefore changed the world.
Okay.
That's clever. But minimalist, right?
I like it.
Doesn't seem like a minimalist approach.
No, right. Yeah, this is a big bite. So we're gonna probably come up with a more manageable ask next time.
Yeah.
All right. So let me just back up here. Okay. We've now used Agent GPT to show what this even is, like what this technology is, what agents are.
Right.
And let's just talk about what happened. Okay. So back in April, 4 things happened that were big, that really were on my radar. Auto GPT came out, which is this. No, that's not this. This is Agent GPT.
Right.
There's also one called Auto GPT and one called Baby AGI. Okay. And if we go to the GitHub repos of these, we can kind of see the state of the projects.
Okay.
These are all kind of the same thing. They're all attempts at creating some kind of agent. And for what it's worth, my sense is that the Lego blocks are not the right shape or size right now. Like I was talking about, if there was a person in the process somewhere, this would be way better, So I think this, maybe there's a way to this being truly autonomous, but okay. So Baby AGI, you can see this has 16,000 stars, which is a lot more than my projects have. But there's not a lot of activity now. It looks like it burned out, and people have probably consolidated towards this other one called Auto GPT. But let's talk about Agent GPT real quick, because obviously we're here.
Yeah.
This is now a paid system. And they don't make you put your own API key in. Like, they want you to pay $40 a month.
Just for this service.
Yeah, just for this service. So
wow.
With free, you don't get very much. You can see that it works, and it kind of whets your palate a little bit, whets your appetite. Pro, you can get 30 agents per day, GPT-4, 25 loops per agent, which, by the way, still not that much. 25 loops, you can probably solve some things, but it's not a huge amount. So this has become a commercial thing that's sort of off on its own, trying to make money. That's fine. Auto GPT seems to be where the activity is. This thing has 146,000 stars, and they're releasing things all the time. It supports all kinds of different LLMs, and this is probably where we're going to focus to see where the activity is.
Okay.
I also want to talk about the generative agents paper, which is this interactive simulacra of human behavior.
Oh, you showed me this on Slack a while ago. You showed all of us, right?
Yeah, I did. This is also back in April. This shows another take on what agents could be. And this is very different, and I think this has a lot of potential. basically what they did, this team at Stanford, led by Jun Sung Park. I hope I didn't butcher that name at all. Yeah, so they have this world, and there are all these little characters in it, and each character is basically a prompt. And the prompt says something like, I'm Sally, and I like flowers, and I'm planning a Valentine's party. And there are like 25 little characters in here.
Are you sure we didn't talk about this like on the very first episode?
We might have.
I'll
just skim over it.
Yeah.
I'll just skim over it very quickly. It's still fascinating and relevant.
It is fascinating, yes. And then they go to like a Halloween party and then they get together and they do things. And I think I said it's kind of like The Sims on steroids. Do you remember this now?
It is. Yep. Yeah. So just to go really quick on this, all right? There's a couple things I want to show from this. The big takeaway is they kind of studied what they do. They basically ran GPT-4, maybe 3.5, and this giant, huge mega loop probably took a lot of API calls to make it happen. But these little characters can actually walk around and talk to each other and remember the conversations because it just gets dropped into their prompt.
Yeah.
There's like a centralized server that's cobbling these prompts together, which is a powerful idea. And what they found is that the most interesting thing is that one of them wanted to plan a Valentine's party, and the information about that party propagated into the memories of like 18 of the 25 bots.
Wow.
And there was a Valentine's party. And some of them planned their day around it, some didn't. It's very interesting.
It's so cool. So, I mean, it looks as if they have free will.
They have a kind of agency, right? Like,
yeah, an
they
agency,
are what you tell
that's
them
what it means. Yeah.
Yeah. So like what is... Yeah. So the thing that really draws my eye on this, and I won't spend too much time on it. Well, this is interesting too, where it just talks about kind of how they spend their days.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to spend any time on that. It's this little loop right here. This shows, it's sort of the loop of how they make decisions and act.
Wow.
And how the server in the middle is managing their memories, and it talks about all that. So this is just open source. It's just out there.
Very human.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of power to the idea of having bots with personalities collaborating with a human on a problem. And that's what the
that's what
Antimony
this
project
thing is all about.
Yep. We have this thing we're working on that the idea is to allow bots to play games, but a game could be very non-trivial. You could make a game where bots modeled an entire courtroom. And you could say, like, let's say you're a lawyer. You could make a game where you model who you think the jury is and who you think the judge is. Like, I think this guy's a little racist. I think these jurors are a little bit like this. And then you could actually automate arguments and run the entire process and see what happens. You know, like that's generative agents, but a totally different take on it that I really
what just occurs to me? Like Star Trek, The Next Generation, we both grew up on that, in our generation.
Sure.
And the computer was like magical, computer. And now it's like Alexa does the same thing, right? Except that computer was really smart. So why were they asking each other to come up with solutions? Why did they even have a ready room without the computer? Computer, what do you think? Because if you think about it, if that's like the 28th century or whatever it is, and here we are in 2023 with GPT, somebody wasn't putting on their future hat.
Well, what's funny is that if you watch Picard, which the third season just came out,
loved
a huge
the third
underlying
season.
plot. Yep. Well, a huge subplot, a huge theme of that, and also of Next Generation is artificial intelligence and what it means to be data and what it means to be synthetic. And and there's a huge backlash in the show against synthetics and a war and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then the Borg, of course, you don't want those guys in charge.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. They didn't think that through, but so this is noteworthy because this also came out at the same time, and I think the work on this is just beginning. Like, there's so much to do that's fascinating. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a filmmaker, and the Antimony idea of making games. You could also make a game that is like the entirety of Tatooine. And,
wow.
Like remember Muds? Remember Muds, Carl, where, multi-user dungeons where you're playing like a D&D type game in a chat interface. Every NPC could be a living bot with a personality. The problem is that it's too slow right now. That would take a lot of time to model, but there's a lot to do. And I'm kind of shocked that it's not getting done. Okay. So Now we're going to switch over. So that said, we covered the state of baby AGI. We covered the generative agents paper. We covered Agent GPT, which is the paid one now. And now we're going to switch over to what I think is actually the winner in the space currently, which is Auto GPT.
Right.
So just to recap, Auto GPT's got a lot of activity, 146,000 stars, 31,000 forks, and just lots of people working on it.
Yeah.
So this is the command prompt, which a lot of people have never even seen. But if you've got Windows, you've got it. And I'm just going to run this. You type commands into this. There's quite a bit of setup involved. Ignore what's happening right now. What do we want Auto GPT to do?
All right. So is this where I can come up with a sort of something that I want an agency to work on?
Yep. A reasonable goal.
All right. So here's one. How would I go about converting my 600 square foot garage into a professional recording studio?
Now, if you ask this, let's ask, before we do this, I kind of want to ask ChatGPT this question so we can compare. Maybe we'll do that after.
All right. Sure. Yeah.
So I'm just going to run this.
Yep.
So setting this up, there was a lot involved. I had to put an API key in, which means you have to have a paid API account, you know? Obviously, this is just text streaming through. It's not beautiful, but here are the goals.
All right. So it gave itself a name, Studio Builder GPT, an AI specialized in studio design construction that assists individuals in transforming their spaces into professional recording studios, conduct a thorough analysis, offer guidance on selecting equipment, advise on the implementation of effective soundproofing, provide recommendations for the appropriate electrical and HVAC systems, assist in budgeting and sourcing materials, equipment. Holy crap. If it can do all that, I could fire my general contractor. No, I'm kidding. Thoughts. As I haven't received a specific task yet, I need to ask the user about the details of the recording studio they want to create. This will include the size of the space, their specific needs for recording, and their budget. Reasoning. I love this. Before I can start planning and designing a recording studio, I need to have a clear understanding of the user's needs, yada, yada, plan. So reasoning is a sort of refinement of thoughts, it sounds like.
Yeah. So there are prompts that are running that are, but look, keep going, like criticism. It criticizes its own plan to try to get a better plan. It's going to loop through until it's satisfied with itself.
All right. So the plan is ask the user about the details of the recording studio they want to build, use this information to start playing this. So it sounds like thoughts is general, reasoning is a little more refined, plan is a little bit more refined than that and broken down into steps. And then I may need to ask more detailed questions. Speak. Before we get started, could you please provide some more details about the recording studio you want to build? Particular, I need to know the size of the space. I thought I said that. Your specific needs for recording and your budget. All right, cool.
So we'll say the space is 600 square feet.
Yep.
What else you got?
I want a quiet HVAC system and needs to be insulated to R50. SUL.
R50?
Yep. R50 is the insulation level.
Yeah.
That I want.
I know what it means, but 50 is a high number.
Yeah, that's what my recording studio is insulated to. So I have an ulterior motive here. God, I'll tell you the HVAC story later. But insulated to R50, and my budget is $50,000. Needs to be completely soundproof. Yeah.
Well, R50 is super, super insulated, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I guess your goal is by making it at like using the vacuum of space for insulation, you're also soundproofing it. Is that right?
What I did in my studio is I actually left the Rockwool installation exposed and then covered it with fabric that was stretched over the beams. So it's really, really, really sound sucking.
Yeah, that's great. All right. So a few things here. It's taking the feedback. It's saying that we've given it enough information now, and it wants to store it in a file for reference. Now, anytime ChatGPT tells you that it's storing things in a file, it's not.
Lying.
But this is.
Really?
Yeah, because the app.
Sure. Yeah, it's
the
an app.
Actually has. It's got a few different mechanisms for storage,
and it's running locally. Makes sense.
It's running locally.
Can you add that the walls need to be fabric stretched over the insulation for maximum sound absorption.
Let's see if it actually can correct,
Sure.
understand that I'm not telling it to continue and fold this into its. So it actually uses a combination of GPT 3.5 Turbo and 4 for different things. It's got a fast thinker and a good thinker.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things. I mean, we could talk about vector databases and that'll really blow your mind. It's so interesting.
All right. And
I figured it out
requirement.
and it appended the file.
You should have asked the user for all requirements at the beginning to avoid have to blah, blah, blah. Noted. Okay. Yes. Authorize the command to write it to a file, right?
Oh, I have to say yes? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Append to file.
Okay. I think, I guess I say yes.
It's going to do it. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go.
So I could go to my file system and open studiospecs.txt and that's.
Oh, but look at the top line. Next action, write to file. We may have appended it, but we didn't write it in the first place.
We did up here. I hope.
You didn't say yes. You just said one more thing. You didn't say why.
Well, I will go in a different window and see if I can find where that file is. Okay, so now the specification is stored. I will need to research the best practices for constructing a recording studio with these specific parameters. It's got a plan, develop a plan for the layout of studio. I'm now going to research the best practices. So I'm going to just tell it, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. So there it goes.
Got an HTTP error. Here we go. It did recover. I will use the web search command as an alternative to conduct the research.
Okay.
Yes, do it.
Yeah. There you go. Look at that.
So it's scraping a website.
Step-by-step guide.
So this is not going to be likely as intelligent as a human contractor.
Well, it's also pretty
articles.
general, right?
Yeah.
And it's also kind of advertising. We bring our experience in acoustic enhancements and noise control. So it's literally scraping a website, which is more than Alexa can do. Just saying. So it's asking if you want to save that answer to your data, right?
So, yeah, I guess so. Whoa.
Uh-oh.
File entry lacks
checksum.
Seems like it's okay. It's still going. File written to successfully.
Okay.
So what you can do is just tell it yes dash 100 and it will loop until it feels like it's done, if it ever feels done.
Oh, I see. Or 100 iterations, whichever comes first.
And most of these files are from a different run that I did months ago, where I was researching micromanagement for work.
I can now start planning the layout of the recording studio. Before I proceed, I should read the stored specification and research data to ensure I have a clear understanding of the user's requirements and the best practices for constructing a recording studio. So it's saying, before I consult with you, mister, I need to read some stuff. Now, it's not really reading it, is it? Is it reading and it's not really reading and understanding. It's just parsing. And
I will review it and start planning the layout of your recording studio. I think it's just taking the information we have so far and
going to the next logical step.
Yep.
I think it's really cool. And let's see what ChatGPT comes up with when we do the same thing.
Yeah. So let's switch over. So if we switch over to ChatGPT and we ask it the same question, and how did we phrase that question before?
It was, how would I go about converting my 600 square foot garage into a professional recording studio?
And let's give it all the same. I guess it probably wouldn't know to ask. So let's just go with this and see what it.
Right. So it needs to be insulated to R50.
So, well, one thing to note is that ChatGPT would almost certainly not come back and say, wait, I need more information.
Right.
It doesn't know to do that.
So we're providing all that we can.
Yeah. And I know that's something that the agent people work really hard on is identifying the cases where it doesn't know and asking for more. It's actually really impressive that it did that.
Yeah.
So it needs to be insulated to R50.
Have a quiet HVAC system. And the walls need to be made from fabric stretched over the insulation. Budget is $50,000.
So it's going to give you,
it's giving you
it's zooming out to like a reasonable level to.
Yeah. Number 4, insulate to R50. A, choose insulation. B, install installation. Thanks, genius.
I mean, this is like true.
It is true, but yeah, it's sort of.
It's not going to help you solve.
It's making a checklist of things that you need to figure out.
Right, like quiet HVAC system. The ideal would be to search for, like, do the research and find the right HVAC system and the person in your area that can install it. And all that stuff.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's not going to do that, but an agent eventually could.
And also now it's saying install base traps. That presumes that the walls are not fabric stretched over the insulation, but that they are indeed drywall.
Oh, base traps. Yeah. So, pretty good, but
it's not bad. It's a good start.
Not really a contractor.
Right. But I like where you're going with the agent GPT or the auto GPT command line. I like that.
Yeah. So what we could do is switch back to that and just let that thing run and see what it comes up with in the end. But I can tell you at the end of the day, it's still not going to be a contractor. It'll probably have a much more thoughtful plan.
Mm-hmm.
But it won't be something actionable.
Right. So what kind of things were you thinking that Auto GPT could figure out for you?
Well, this technology is always really good for writing and brainstorming and things like that. Like, you probably could just extrude an entire finished but crappy story.
Right.
I don't know. I think there's going to be a moment where it's suddenly there and it's got enough integrations and plugins that it can do really powerful things. But for now, it's still not quite ready.
I kind of like the building project idea. And maybe if we had paid more attention to the order of prompts, it probably would have been better. But in the end, you could ask it to, find a list of contractors near me that that would be able to give me a quote. Maybe it could do that.
We could attempt that with
something more simple, like building a swing set. Or you know what I want to build? I want to find somebody who welds and make a Santa Maria grill. You know what those are? No. It's like a bed for charcoal, and then it has a grill and a wheel that you turn. You crank the wheel, and it brings the grill closer to the flame or higher. It's an Argentinian grill.
Oh, cool.
And, with a good welder and some good, basic steel, you could make one. Aluminum. Wow. I don't know.
You think GPT can answer that for you?
I don't know. But that's the kind of thing that I would go looking for on Google, or on YouTube.
Let's see if we can find a welder in your area.
Okay.
I believe there's a browsing plugin. That's not where I remember it being, but let's try this.
There you go.
And we'll just go deliver real-time search results fetching it. That sounds like it.
Okay.
So find a welder who might be available for a small job in New London, Connecticut.
Yes.
Is that how you spell it?
Yeah.
So behind the scenes, it's saying, can I do this? Do I have any plugins that can do this?
Yeah.
And then it's executing it and it's going to.
Using Browser Pilot. But, how much more accurate is it going to be than you just go into Google? That's the question. Okay. Well, there you go. Here's a few. Denny's. Burnsy. You're welcome, New London welders. We're giving you some top metal workers. And so it actually comes up with a list. That's pretty cool.
Let's see if we can push it a little farther.
All right.
Which of these is highest rated?
That might also be the most expensive.
True.
But we'll see. I certainly don't want an idiot making my Santa Maria grill.
Yeah, you might not want the cheapest option.
Right. Hey, it burned a hole through my deck.
Well, so it tells you how you could find that out. So
that's true. But maybe if, you were looking at something with reviews, like, is this going to supplant like the frugal page, the Google Shopping, where you can search by highest rating and all that kind of stuff? It's just a whole new world. And it's all obviously going to get moved into search engines.
And there may be a plugin that I don't know about that is the Yelp rating plugin that would have done this for us. We just don't have that plugin. But once you have enough plugins, you can, you could orchestrate a lot of really interesting behaviors that way. And so this is just the beginning of this world. I do think search engines will have this. Google definitely feels threatened, and they're trying to figure it out. So, so that's the state of agents.
That's very cool.
I think Auto GPT is winning.
Yeah.
And it's still not quite there yet, but it's a lot better than it used to be.
All right. That's great. Maybe we can dive further into Auto GPT next week, or unless you have another option or another idea. But either way, it's going to be fascinating. So you want to stick around for next week's AI Bot Show. I'm Carl Franklin and Brian MacKay. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.